Hi there, my name is Flavio and welcome back to Gym with Mod. Today I'm going to show you the entire process of creating the Uncharted 1 Drake's Fortune journal. This journal was a bit difficult to make an exact replica, not because it has too many drawings or documents, not by a long shot, but because of the lack of good quality photos. Not even with the HD remastered collection I couldn't quite figure out what was on the journal. But luckily I have a big 4K TV that definitely helped me to make some sense of what was on the journal. I was like a senior Chang in Community trying to figure out what was there.
It's a tiny piece of paper. Okay, that's all it is. Tiny piece of paper.
So here is the guide step by step on all the process of creating this journal. To recreate the journal, having the most accurate drawings in text possible, I went over to the video game Uncharted 1 Drake's Fortune to capture these images. While in the next installments of the games, we can access the journal in every chapter and go through every page. In this one, limited by the technology of this time I guess, we can only access the journal in specific areas and we can swipe the pages. But I got to replay 3 chapters of the game, which was nice. So, to make the job easy for you, here is a list of the chapters that you have to replay to reach the area where you can access the journal. The first entry on the journal is located in the chapter 2, The Search of El Dorado. And the second entry on the journal is located in the same chapter. The third and fourth entry on the journal are located in chapter 13, The Sanctuary. The fifth is located in chapter 14, Going Underground. And the last two are located in the same chapter, the chapter 15, On the Trail of the Treasure. When I got all the images I wanted, I transferred them to my PC and started editing them. The first thing I did was to rearrange the images, both in dimension and slope. Then I changed the color only to black and white to get just the stroke of the draw, discarding all the rest of the colors. Since I wanted to transfer the lines only to the journal, I didn't need the rest of the color scheme. For the end right, I used the font that was closer to the one that is on the journal and placed the text in the same area where they were supposed to be on the journal. Some of the texts were easy to read, but there were some parts that I could only figure out by looking at the pixels at the TV and adjusting the settings like the brightness and the contrast. But there was a page where they not even tried to write something down. I'm talking about this one. For how much big your TV is, there is no way to understand the handwrite, so I had to come up with some text that fit the page and made sense. Since it's the Francis Drake journal, all of his entries are regarding the island and the locations. So the text I wrote was about the puzzle that leads to the land of the dead, as he described it, and the caves that follow. When all the pages were ready, I went and printed them on the transfer paper. Now the notebook. I had to make some modifications to it, like gluing the first page to hide the lines that you saw, and to give more thickness to the pages. When that was done, I used a mixture of warm water and 2 spoons of coffee to create the effect of the pages looking older. To do this, I used a paintbrush and scoured the mixture on all the pages, but before I moved to the next page, I used a paper towel to absorb the excess and an air dryer to dry the page. And I did this process for all the pages on the journal. To create the drawings and the text, I used the transfer paper and with the pencil, transferred the images to the actual notebook. This was a 2-step process. First, the process of transferring the image, and then, with a brown color pencil, going through all the draw to make sure that no little detail was left behind. For the text, the process was the same, but instead of using a brown pencil, I used a thin brown pen. When all the draws and text were done, I started to work on the cover. The first thing I did was to protect all the pages and the strap with a masking tape, so the spray color can reach those parts. With all the areas protected, I used a gold spray can to paint the first layer of the journal's cover. I used this first layer of gold, so later, when I scratch the cover, I can get this nice color in those scratched areas. With the first layer dried, I went and used again the masking tape, and this time I created a rectangle along the cover, resembling the real journal. For the second and final layer, I used a brownish red to paint the cover. Just a note, I waited 24 hours in between each layer so both of the colors could really sink and dry in the cover material. Now, as you can see, the masking tape did a great job preventing the red color to go through the rectangle. To give that old and rare look to the journal cover, I used 3 different types of sandpaper. The first was the 320, then the 400 and then the 800. For the weathering process, I started by sanding first the edges and the corner, since these are the areas that tend to get damaged in the beginning. Then, actually, there was no method on how to weather it. The key in these parts is just to be random. Just the thing I did was to sand a bit more the gold rectangle, because those perfect and straight lines were making the journal feel a bit too clean and new for a 400 years old journal. The last detail that was missing was the gunshot in the journal. To recreate this, I used a soldering iron and just made a hole in the same area where the journal was shot. The soldering iron was really a great option because it gave a nice effect, making the edge of the hole on the cover melted and all of the edges of the hole on the pages scorched. Now that the hole was done, it was missing the bullet. The bullet was 3D printed, and to make it feel like it was shot against something and got smashed, I used the air dryer and molded it against the journal to get the best approximation on how the bullet was supposed to look like. Then I went and painted with a black matte color. Actually, there was another detail that I forgot to mention. There was still missing the Francis Drake symbol on the journal cover. For this one, I decided to model it myself by using an image of the insignia and trace over every detail. This was a tedious process to get every detail out, but it was all worth it to make the journal feel closer to the real one. When the model was ready, I sent it to my 3D printer to start printing. Then I went and used the same gold spray can to paint the symbol. To adhere it to the journal cover, I used a glue stick and in all the parts some super glue to make sure that the symbol wouldn't fall down. This journal wasn't complete without the map and the photo that Elena took on their first adventure together, so I went and made both. For the photo, the process was pretty simple. I searched for Elena, Nathan, and Sully's photo, and the picture appeared within the first results. Then I modified it to make sure that the Uncharted and Naughty Dog logo disappeared, since they weren't part of the real photo. Then I printed it in the glossy paper, cut it, and wrote on the back the message that Elena left for Nate. But unfortunately, I didn't capture that part. For the map, I used some screen captures and created it with the same process that I used before for the drawings and the text. But like in the text, there were some that I couldn't quite figure out, so I had to come up with some text that made sense. All of them were in Spanish, and luckily, since I am Portuguese, I was able to figure out what the other texts were saying and create new ones that made sense. When the map was created, I printed it with a thicker A4 paper and applied the same old effect on the paper, with a mixture I had created earlier. To make the map feel older and worn out, I folded like we see in the game and used a lighter to burn the edges and the corners, getting closer to the look that the real map has. And that was the whole process of recreating this journal. And there you go, this was a different experience from the other two journals that I created before, the Uncharted 2 and the Uncharted 3 journals. While those two journals had too many drawings and documents, the cover was straightforward. While in this one, in the Uncharted Drake's Fortune journal, the cover took the same time or even more than the drawings. Because I had to paint two layers of different colors, I had to sand it later, and then I had to model, print and glue the insignia on the front cover. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the outcome of this journal. It will definitely go up to my Uncharted shrine. As I said before, I hope this video serves you as a guide to create your own journal. So if you have any questions or any doubts, ask me in the comments. I will try to do my best to explain them. This journal will go up to my Etsy store as the other two journals did, and I will leave the link in the description. As always, please subscribe and like this video to keep up to date with my models and support this channel. Thank you for watching, and remember, dream on!